Hi, everyone. Welcome to the second keynote session on generative AI in the retail industry. For those of you who did not meet me, maybe in the earlier sessions, I'm Mehmet Shekip Altug. I am the Director of Center for Retail Transformation at Costello College of Business. I'm also Associate Professor of Information Systems and Operations Management. Today, we are very happy to have Rajesh Rao as our second keynote speaker. Rajesh serves as a principal at Ernst & Young Consulting, where he directs the Ernst & Young Americas supply chain operations for clients in the technology, media, entertainment, and telecom sectors. His leadership extends to managing the control tower, orchestration, and digital order management for various industries. Rajesh and his team are dedicated to helping clients navigate supply chain disruptions by integrating resilience and long-term sustainability into their supply chain ecosystems. With a wealth of experience in the electronics, telecom, media, entertainment, consumer packaged goods, and retail sectors, he specializes in strategic advising, process optimization, operating model design, and technology transformation. Rajesh earned his master's degree in manufacturing engineering from Syracuse University, and he has a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from Bangalore University. Further enriching his expertise, he has completed advanced finance program at Wharton School and advanced management program at Harvard Business School. So, and one final remark, I had the privilege to work with Rajesh at I2 Technologies in their high-tech consulting group in Dallas, Texas. And with that, one final note, please feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A section, and I will go through those questions and ask them to Rajesh at any point during the panel or maybe towards the end. So with that, I'll hand it over to Rajesh Rao, our second keynote speaker. Thank you, Rajesh.
Thank you, Mehmet. Thank you for that very generous introduction. And it is great to see you and after a long time. And thanks to George Mason University and Costello School of Business and the Retail Center of Transformation for having me here. Have had a variety of experiences working with the CPG and retail industry over my 25 years of supply chain experience. And these days, of course, the talk of the town is Gen AI all the time. So happy to share with you what we are seeing in the marketplace and what some of the challenges are, what some of the applications are with AI and Gen AI. And perhaps have a discussion with you towards the end. Please feel free to ask questions as to what we see this market as it evolves. As you know, it's one of the faster evolving markets that we've ever encountered. So happy to share my knowledge and understand from you something new as well. Thank you. So as we get into the next, just quickly agenda-wise, quickly look at what does the future of retail look like. What is Gen AI basically? How is it different? AI has been around for a while. How is it different? And then how is Gen AI shaping the future of retail? What are some of the use cases that we are seeing in the market? Where is it being applied on the front end and the back end of operations? And we look at what are some of the challenges that Gen AI faces in retail. These are more practical challenges that they do need to solve if it needs to scale. And then lastly, how will Gen AI really evolve from where it is today, right? So we'll cover these topics. Now, when we look at retail, all of us are, what does the future of retail look like? Look, all of us are passionate about retail. We're all consumers. And, traditionally retailers, their value proposition was really looking at giving you a wide scope of assortments that you could take a look at and pick and choose what you like from a color, from a size, from a variety, price point. There's so many different variations from a scope perspective. From an efficiency perspective, their whole idea was to make operations as effective as possible, both from a supply chain perspective and the retail store operations. And some of it is retail stores, some of it is e-commerce, of course, right? But they really wanted to make it as efficient as possible so that they can increase their margin that they're selling these goods and assortments at. Now, from a scale perspective, as you know, the footprint of many of these stores is really highly localized, and you can see many of our retailers have multiple stores within a particular location and hundreds of stores and thousands of stores across the United States, if not the globe. But this paradigm is changing, mainly because now customers are really focused on saving time, right? Most important is saving time. So you've seen a number of applications come online now where we don't even go to the store. We just order what we want, and it just comes home, right? There's a price to pay for it, but essentially it just comes home. You never even visit the store. So what is the role of the retailer in this case is a significant issue that retailers themselves are facing. And we want them to solve our problems, right? We don't have time, so I have a problem. I want my problem to be solved. And that's kind of the most important thing. And lastly, most retailers are wondering, how do we kind of combine these two and then actually create experiences for people, right? Because what's on the left-hand side is equally important today, but it is just that consumers are not focusing on those things. They just take it for granted, right? But they really want to do the things on the right side. So when you look at it, I mean, this applies to me. I use those apps to get everything home. My favorite is a discount retailer because they solve problems. I need a belt, or I need socks. I just go to the discount retailer instead of a fancy high-end retailer and buy the same thing at twice or thrice the price. So then where do the rest of the retailers play? How do they attract us? Is by creating experiences. So one of the things is we are in what we call the attention economy now, right? So our attention is what everybody is after. So how do you create experiences around this to grab our attention? So a number of different players. An outdoor retailer essentially is hosting various events for outdoor enthusiasts to bring them together in the form of a club, right? And they participate in this club. They share their experiences and plan various outdoor events. And of course, they buy things from the outdoor retailer. And then there's a beauty retailer that you see in every mall. And of course, beauty, the cosmetics are available in a lot of different places, and you could buy them online as well. But the beauty store is essentially creating beauty experiences, such as makeovers, such as beauty lessons, such as giving them ideas as to how they can use different aspects of beauty and then use their products in conjunction with what they want to look for, and a particular look for a different occasion, and so on and so forth. So it's all about creating these experiences. And likewise, one of our biggest consumer retailers that we all use, the phones itself, it's all about experience when you get into their store. It's not just about buying the product, but they're actually giving us lessons on how to use a phone, but really more than that, how to use different apps, and helping us use the phone much better and getting the value out of it. So this is where the world is going, right? So as we kind of move forward, let me share a video with you in terms of how retail consumer might think of it down the road. Let me see if you can give me a thumbs up sign, Mehmet, if you can hear it.
Imagine a world shaped by amazing brand experiences. Meet Wan Yi. She's a retail assistant in a clothing store. Wan Yi likes a new look every day. What's trending now? What's coming up? She tries new outfits, sees how they work, and gets instant feedback from her followers. It's easy and fun. Breakfast is time for a training module about Coco Chanel. The store where she works needs Wan Yi to know that style never goes out of fashion. And with its AI predicting a busy morning of sales, she has to come in early today. Down at the store, Wan Yi greets her clients. Data from their avatars tell her what they like. AI helps Wan Yi suggest designs they all love. And they can wear her ideas right now in virtual reality, seeing what the clothes look like, experiencing how they feel. A high-status customer comes into the store. She's heading to Paris and wants something cheap. Suddenly, she's there, wearing Wan Yi's creation, feeling the buzz of the city, all in virtual reality. Wan Yi makes the look unique. The client is delighted. Everything is custom-made locally and delivered straight to the store right away. The client loves the experience and shares great feedback, boosting the store's brand score. That attracts more clients and earns Wan Yi an instant reward. And the new look she made is selling fast. It's been a great day. So after work, Wan Yi shops with friends. They love to try new brand experiences. Wan Yi creates unique designs for everyone, which she adds to her portfolio. While the store they visit becomes a club, her followers like and buy her looks, earning her more influence, more money, and more space for new clothes. Design, shop, sleep, repeat is what Wan Yi lives for. When you love new experiences, you want to experience everything.
Amazing.
Yeah, just kind of shows you what a lot of the young people and people who are buying clothes in high-end fashion retailers are into, and how the fast fashion world is essentially becoming fast fashion but with experiences, right? That's what's happening.
And therefore becoming even faster, right?
Even faster, right? So everything needs to keep up. So let's look at a little bit about all the technologies that are happening all at the same time. Of course, Gen AI and AI is sort of the latest thing here. But then there's a convergence, right? All these things are powerful on its own. And as you can imagine, 32% of the US retailers plan to use AI or Gen AI in their stores, in their operations. But when you actually combine some of these technologies, you essentially have, edge computing, IoT, Gen AI, 5G, AR, VR, all coming together to create some of the wonderful capabilities that you saw even in that advertisement, even in the video, like the smart mirrors, augmented reality, and these things are not possible without bringing all those capabilities together. We were recently in a nice hotel in Boston, and a robot comes up to the room with our, my wife ordered some food, and the robot brings the food to our room and then goes back, right? It's a completely different level of service. And then you're able to actually talk to the robot, with limited AI, of course, at this stage, but you're still able to converse with the robot as to what you want and, how you want it when you want it, right? So pretty fascinating. So let me take you to the, if you look back, personalization is one of the most important things that we all want. We all hope that everything that we buy is just made for us, one person. And of course, AI will take it to the next level, because when you think about it, consumer insights, they are crawling the whole web for all sorts of data, social media data. They're looking at product reviews and related comments to, that they can get. They're applying a lot of the trend analysis based on countries, regions, zip codes to this, right? So that they can determine what the consumer preferences are in these locations. Now, based on consumer preferences, certain preferred products and brands are identified to be placed in certain stores or offered online based on where you're coming from, your IP addresses, so on. They're also taking a look at consumer profiles. They already have buyer information, buyer behavior. A lot of this information is available, and all the transactional data that they have about you. Now, they combine all this and basically identify consumer segments, which are essentially even micro consumer segments. So you don't need to fit into a broad consumer segment, but you really fit into a micro consumer segment. And then they essentially recognize what are the suitable products for each of these subsegments, right? And therefore, then they fill out a product portfolio to essentially present it to you. Now, a lot of this was happening manually prior to this, but now with AI and Gen AI, what's happening is people are using about 50 to 100 different variables to actually drive this analysis all in real time. One real example is it was snowing across multiple states recently. And so one of our major retailers, big box retailers, essentially identified the weather patterns and then applied the demographic patterns across multiple states. And they have basically about 10 to 15 stores in a size of city of San Diego. And so for each store, based on the demographics, based on the buyer patterns and consumer profiles, they were able to position snowboards in each of these locations, because it was a huge snowfall and people could snowboard all over the place. But at different price points, different brands in each of these locations. So huge difference from what they used to do before, where nothing used to happen. You would still need to go to the snowboard store and buy it, but they capitalized on all that information that's now available to them. And of course, we are getting into a no-code situation. People are not coding anymore. So it's much easier to do this. And there are companies that are offering fully executable code ready to go at the drop of a hat, right? So the advances are happening very rapidly in this space. Now, what is Gen AI? And I think I won't belabor this slide, but I think if a lot of us that grew up in the 90s and did research in the 90s, we all used, languages like Lisp to apply AI to various operations research problems. We used to evaluate this. And then machine learning came, and then deep learning, and then generative AI, which most of you know what it is. But essentially, it's the ability to create new and visual and auditory content from existing instructions of data. Now, of course, we have pre-trained transformers, which is the latest craze. And so we're able to solve these problems much more effectively and niche set of problems in a much more effective way, because you're essentially training the transformer on a very subset of problems as opposed to the broad big data set. And that's what's happening in the real world. Now, a couple of things is, when you look at, if you heard the speech from a CEO of a major chip manufacturer who manufactures AI chips, people are taking these GPTs and then taking multiple GPTs and connecting them and then embedding them in robots. This is under testing right now. So a robot will not only capable of delivering food to the room, but it'll actually be capable of multiple other things, right? Could perhaps take you for a walk if you want in the park. So you see the capabilities are expanding because the GPT is capable of doing certain things. But when you combine the multiple capabilities, then you're essentially giving it the full-fledged humanoid-like capabilities. So therefore, it can do multiple different things that are unrelated to each other, right? Just like we can do things. So I'll leave it there. But one other aspect is, if you look at what is happening in the developed world and some of the emerging markets, if you see US, Europe, and Japan, efficiency is still the big focus. Personalization is the big focus. Lots of tech-savvy customers such as ourselves. We emphasis on convenience, and corporations have huge budgets and tech infrastructure, and Gen AI development and integration is happening in many of these companies. If you look at China and India, the focus is on innovation and value creation, a big middle-class segment with rising population, right? And they want innovative experiences. However, the customers, the retailers themselves have low R&D budgets, and therefore they're collaborating with big tech players and cutting deals such a way that they can share a portion of the revenue because they want the AI and the retailing technology to be embedded in their retailing efforts. So different approaches across different regions around the world. And you'll see that a global convenience store is essentially using Gen AI to cut down product implementation time. It used to take them 10 months to create a new product, speed up planning, and reduce all the product launch time. Essentially, they're doing it in 1 month now. Right?
Rich, can I ask one question here? That efficiency personalization versus innovation value creation, emerging markets, developed markets, has it been like that since the early days? And a related question is, do you think that could change in the near future?
Yeah, I think it will change as the population, in those countries, the middle class segment becomes much more, sort of moves towards upper class and has much more discretionary income. Then the focus on value goes down, and then experiences and personalization increases, right?
Yes.
People are looking for the wow factor today to do anything, but then here we focus a lot more on efficiency and personalization, right? So, but that could likely to change over a period of time. But given the size of the populations, the middle class segment is bigger than the US population, in both cases, right?
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a, time frame that it might happen over. Yeah.
Great. Thanks.
So so moving into what is happening in the space, actually, what are they doing, right? So if you look at $8 billion is what people expect the Gen AI market to be by 2032, growing at about a 36% CAGR. And VCs are making about $18 billion of investments into this space. So for those of you who are listening, I mean, you can see where all the money is going. This is where all the jobs are. This is where the research is being done. This is where, all the interesting problems are to solve, because there is so much money being put into this. You can see that 70% of the CEOs are investing in this. And, there's a reduction in 90% of time actually it takes. One of the projects that we did just a few years ago without even Gen AI for customer operations, we reduced the time to respond by 95%. Because it's just so simple now. You ask a question, you get the answer. versus somebody having to do a lot of research and then come back with an answer in 2 minutes. Now you reduce that to 10 seconds even, right?
Yeah.
So it's that fast, and this is happening very quickly. Trust is still an issue here. It is sort of this thing, you don't trust, lots of people still don't trust all the social media that's out there, but people actually trust the AI that comes in ChatGPT form or Gemini or Grok a lot more. Interestingly, you tell it so many of your personal problems. And I believe this is because it's solving a problem for you, right? It's solving a problem for you. Therefore, you're willing to. My wife shares all sorts of information. Hey, what is the best retailer to get me meals to lose 20 pounds? Right? I'm like, okay, who asked you to tell it to that I need to lose 20 pounds? But you're sharing this information and much more with ChatGPT or with Gemini or Grok or whatever, but you're not often willing to share the same kind of information with every retailer. You want to trust the brand. So branding and trust is super important still. Right? And when you look at where it is being applied, really all across on the customer experience enhancement that we talked about, any intuitive product search. Now, product search can be fairly simple, but now there's voice search, there is image search. You can upload an image of something, and then you can ask it to search where this product is being sold or similar products. There is semantic search. Now you can put in a bunch of words and then see the connectivity between those words, and it'll still come up with what exactly were you implying and so on and so forth. Trying to enable a seamless buying experience with touchless checkouts, store navigation, buy online, pick up in store, completely knowing what your preference is and knowing that before you even shop, right? And enabling that preference. Personalized marketing, we already talked about it in terms of how that's done. Tailored customer support, chatbots are huge, remote diagnosis is huge, depends upon the kind of product you bought. From a supply chain perspective, again, variability is still happening. We all have implemented supply chain systems for 20 years, 25 years, but still there's so much variability in the supply chain given the number of links that people are still solving problems in that space. But I think with the advent of Gen AI, some of those problems will be solved because people are now talking about in the retail space autonomous planning. So wherein you essentially create multiple plans for every kind of situation and have a huge database of plans. So you're now training it that in case such a problem occurs, this is the plan you need to pull up and effectively execute, right? These are all the parameters. So once you're able to fully do that and your transformer model is actually able to take one of those plans and execute it, you'll actually solve many of your problems now in a much more automated way. Of course, there are challenges that remain, right? Underneath, whether it's data, whether it's integration, those problems still are there. But there are now solutions in the market that are trying to address, can we, bridge the orphan data by fixing the data itself through AI, right? Knowing all the relationships of data, can I fix that? Right? So those are things that are happening. Now, as far as no-code, low-code environments, those are being out there in the market now. There are a number of firms that are offering you no-code solutions or low-code solutions, and these are fully executable files that you can get for doing a certain thing. As long as you create your requirements well and your inputs-output definition well, they're able to actually do that. I mean, back in the day, we all used to differentiate ourselves by knowing I know Java, I know Python, I know C++, but these days, you actually have automatic coding that happens. So, I think it's a level playing field. Now, when you look at the further kind of a deep dive, you look at it on the right-hand side, you essentially see, buying experience and services. What this chart shows you is that where is it being mostly implemented, right? So if you look at the buying experience and services, there's chatbots, there is 3D product catalogs based on 2D images, virtual try-ons and mirrors, personalized customer services. From a store operations perspective, visual merchandising, in-store layout planning, floor planning, personalized retail experience such as 3D product configurators. So as you move towards the left, you get more into the operations, and you'll see it's not used still as widely, but over a period of time, it will pick up, right? That's what's happening. This is just a present state of view, sort of state of the market. The other thing is, if you look at what are the problems they're trying to solve about innovation and product focused, about 27% of all the efforts that clients are making are focused on innovation and product. Efficiency is about 36%. So people want to take cost out, make it as efficient as possible. Talent management is about 23% of the effort. Strategy, planning, and innovation is about 27%. And equally important is revenue growth for most of these clients. And they're looking at about 27% of the investments are going into how can I better my revenue, right? So this gives you the lay of the land. Obviously, we won't have time to go through each one and dig deep, but these are, by no means it's a comprehensive list, but it's sort of indicative list that, what clients are working on. Now, and in each of these, supply chain operations, we know a multinational company that's essentially, integrated a Gen AI assistant to improve supply chain efficiency. So anytime there are issues, they go to the assistant to solve supply chain problems. A multinational luxury fashion, high-end luxury maker is using a US-based AI company to automate online personalization, right? So they have a highly personalized application that understands who you are and why you're here, what have you bought, and then makes recommendations for you. A supermarket, has partnered with a tech company to offer third-party sellers a tool for improving search engine rankings, because there's a lot of products on display, and you want to improve your search engine rankings. And a French multinational essentially is working on procurement side of the operations, improving purchasing processes, expediting tasks like drafting tenders and analyzing codes. One of the things is, so retailers are very closely collaborating with the tech giants and many startups, right? Because startups are fast to move and they're really creative and innovative ideas. And so retailers are actually looking for innovation all around. Okay. Now, when you think about what are some of the challenges in the space, right? And when you think about challenges, one of the first ones is data privacy. Big issue because, where's my data going? Only 52% are worried about like the impact on their privacy. They're still using it. So it's, I think it's a give and take situation, and people will continue to use AI forever. But, so it really depends upon your brand equity with them, right? So it's super important. And 53% will pay more attention to which brands, right? And therefore, which companies they share data with. So ultimately, it goes back to the original intent: saving time, solving problems, and experiences. If you're able to help your consumers achieve that, then they're more likely to realize your brand promise and share more data with you. So this is sort of the challenges with a connected world. Of course, retailers are also concerned that in a connected world, in using AI and all these emerging technologies that you bring together, there's a lot of information floating around, a lot of APIs connecting multiple different players. So it does become much more challenging to maintain security and security of data, security of information. And therefore, it really depends upon how good your brand is at communicating these things in the market, right? Next is copyright issues. As you know, there's so many discussions going on in the market about did they use my data to train the transformer model? And how did that happen? Did I actually give my permission, right? I mean, not only did you give you never gave the permission to the company, but they didn't take the permission from the company or you, but they're using your data. Essentially, every tweet you posted, every Facebook post, somebody's using it to essentially train their GPT transformer models, right? And so 61% of the consumers think that government needs to do more to regulate AI. Now, there's laws already happening in EU, the EU AI Act, and US is also starting to work on it, obviously. Rigorous implementation is still to be observed. As we get into more and more issues, we will see the need for more regulation as the application expands. Now, in 2016, you can see there was only like one law, and as of starting 2023, there were like 37. And I think by now, that number is even higher. So one of the things that if you're a retailer or if you're in the business, you need to think about how do you legally structure what you're trying to do. It's not just about a proof of concept and just seeing the value from personalization, but what are all the elements of who keeps the data, how is it maintained, what data is shared by whom, and what kind of rights and privileges do you have, and what permissions have you taken. And a little bit easier in the US, much harder in Europe. So anybody who operates in Europe knows very well the laws are much more stricter. and therefore there's many more challenges in the space. The next is, one of the biggest challenges is, of course, system integration and data availability. Even today, after so many years of automation, you will see that only 17% of the retailers say they have a complete and single view of their customers, right? So which means 83% actually don't know or don't have a full view of who you are, what you're doing across all their brands, across all their sites, across all their stores. So a lot of this has to do with lack of technology, lack of data, lack of integration. And then, 47% of the retailers are essentially struggling also to make data accessible because it's sitting in multiple silos across different brands, across different properties, across different stores, so on and so forth. And how do you make data accessible so that AI can actually learn? So here, I think, some of this, many of these problems have been solved in the industry, but people have been slow to adopt them. But now with AI, I think this whole situation will change because AI offers such a significant leap of benefit that people will start to solve some of these underlying problems. My own experience is that you could never sell a master data management project to anybody because, hey, it's super important, but nobody ever pays for it because you fail to justify the business case, right? And so I think in this case, given the huge upside of AI, people will start to address these problems because without that, sure, proof of concepts will be great because it's a very contained niche project, but not broad spectrum of projects across the whole corporate. Yeah. And with that, I mean, those were some of the big challenges that we're seeing in the market right now. And then lastly, right, I mean, where do we take AI? Sort of today, it's about faster and cheaper. It does cost a lot of money to train these models. So people are more interested in doing the most important things. Content creation, marketing, and engagement is where people are mostly focused on. And they're trying to do POCs all across. And, I think in the next 1 to 3 years, with all the investments happening, you get a lot more real-time understanding of operational and market data at scale, right? That's where people are investing a lot of the money so that you can actually scale AI across the entire company. Now, I think if you look forward beyond that, to the future, 3 to 5 years, you'll see that, it'll become embedded across multiple technologies, and have an intuitive user interface between humans and machines so that there's a lot more innovation possible in 5 years. So as I talked about the robots who are fully, with multiple GPTs running, imagine a store salesman, completely robot who is just as capable as you or any trained retail salesperson, fully able to have a conversation with you and then direct you while using all your personal information to direct you in the store. So that's coming, but we are a little bit ways away from there, right? So those were some of the important points I wanted to make as we see the industry and how it's happened, how GenAI is getting adoption. I'll pause here. Happy to take any questions or any other comments.
Thank you very much, Rajesh. This was very insightful, excellent presentation. It's fascinating to see how things will change very soon, actually. So one question here from the audience. There are many Gen AI models that are out for public use. I understand there are private GPTs, but it comes to the cost versus value derived. How can you enforce privacy?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the big corporations will eventually start to use their own private GPTs, right? Because what ends up happening is the public GPTs, unless you walled it off, you cannot use that for your business operations, because the data then resides with, let's say, whoever the owner of that LLM model is. Could be any of the number of big companies. So some level of trust where it could be in their cloud, but essentially you're now getting into agreements with the major corporations, whether they're the hyperscalers, whether they're the consulting firms, whether they're the AI firms, that you essentially wall off your instance of that GPT if it's in a public cloud for your own purpose, right? So the other way is then people are also having their own private GPTs because they don't want their data to leave their premises. right? Or their network, essentially.
Mhm.
So, I mean, we have our own GPT internally, and it's a world of GPT that we use only for our purpose. And it has like an air gap between what we use and what OpenAI has outside. And so we've trained it with our own data, and that's how retailers want to train it with their own data so that the information doesn't get across to other retailers.
Mhm. Within the retail industry, considering there are many sectors, do you see any one of them that is ahead or maybe can benefit more from Gen AI compared to the others? Apparel, obviously, I mean, the examples you gave, because there's a lot more maybe demand uncertainty, or do you have any observations there? Initial thoughts or projections down the line?
Yeah. So I think, the problems are plenty, that this is equally applicable across multiple of these retailers, right? You have the traditional retailers, you have omni-channel retailers that sell both in online and offline stores. Then you have essentially for all soft lines and hard lines. And then you have food retailers. I had a slide on food retailing, but I didn't want to show you that, not enough time. So food waste is a huge problem today, if you see. 30% of the American food in grocery stores actually is wasted. So there is a huge, opportunity for optimizing that supply chain such a way that, and understanding who's coming to buy what they're buying, to optimize that supply chain. And I think the same thing applies to then other kinds of retailing that you might have thought it's not retailing, but it is retailing, theme parks and cruise lines, because they're essentially massive parks with stores, and they make a ton of money through various merchandise that they sell there. And they have lots of interesting problems, not the same as the general retailers, but because their IP is so much more valuable. When you go to a theme park, you want to buy what you want to buy, but there is availability issue still. There is then, when do they attract you into the store, so on and so forth, versus either the end of the day when you're tired, or middle of the day when you still just want to take a break. So there's a lot of thought being put behind that. Likewise, theme parks. I was recently on a cruise ship and we saw their operations, and it's a big store, multiple stores, in fact, on some of these cruise ships.
Opportunity to improve, right?
Yeah, there's a lot to improve. So I think it applies across board. Certainly, the traditional retailing, there's a lot of opportunity, and then anybody who's in omni-channel, still significant opportunity. Yeah.
Another question from the audience: what has been the best use of generative AI that you have seen that has vastly improved the customer experience?
I would think personalization, right? That's where, when they are able to actually take a look at all your personal information and look at the global information, and they're analyzing as many as 50 to 70 variables, and they're able to provide you real time what you thought you might have wanted, and they're able to predict what you wanted, and it's there for the picking, whether it is at the store or whether it is through omnichannel. That's the best that I've seen, right? People have tried to do that for a while, but they weren't fully successful. But now I think they're actually getting there.
Right. So one of the slides you shared, Rajesh, made me think that how it used to be different layer stages within the supply chain. For example, take collaboration tools, right? They each need to be tech savvy, meaning both the supplier and the manufacturer, in order to create that value. So as this the implementation starts with the customer-facing applications and starts to move upstream. And if there's a lack of that, like meaning one supplier is behind compared to the downstream manufacturer or certain suppliers, do you see any issues with the creation of value from these Gen AI applications?
Yeah, that's why I think it will take 3 to 4 years for all that evolution to happen. back in 20 years, 25 years ago, people had a hard time using a portal, right? Because, they didn't know how to upload, connect the portal automatically into their ERP systems, and they were just uploading spreadsheets. But I think in that last 20 years, people have evolved quite a lot. And one of the things, it's the same as, the same analogy I would use as, India didn't even start to use enough landlines, but they went to cell phones, right? Directly. So I think people will leapfrog some of the challenges that we have in that value chain because the upside is so high that people will start to adopt it. I mean, people are very smart. It's just that they didn't invest the money needed earlier to solve the problems. And it's also challenging because you're trying to manually solve all the problems. So as the big retailers come along and they force the business, other businesses to support this, I think people will come along faster than other technologies in the past.
Yeah, thank you, Rajesh, for your time and all the insights. This was fascinating. As I said, it made us think along all these different dimensions, what can happen. I'm sure the audience has benefited a lot from this. We really appreciate your time. And I also, with that, I would like to thank the audience because this was the last session of the summit. It was great to have you. Thank you. And please feel free to reach out to us and connect with the center. We have a lot going on and hope to see you in another event.
Yeah. Thank you, Mehmet. Thanks to George Mason University. And thanks to the Center for Transformation, and thanks to the audience for participating. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Good to have you, Rajesh. Thank you.